Cool.
Ready?
All
Okay.
right. How's everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of Union or Bust. I'm Chris Lopez, your union brother on TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. And Organizing Monster is always included, Juan Perez.
Yeah.
And we have a special guest, Noemi Griffin from iHeart Podcast Union. And
Mhm.
anyway, Noemi, tell me a little about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in Atlanta. I'm Atlanta based. I am a podcast producer at iHeart. Uh it's not all I do. In my free time, I like play roller derby. So cool things all around. I would say I'm filling my
That,
life with
that's
cool
a tough
things,
sport,
including
no?
the union. Yeah, tough sport, a lot of fun,
Yeah.
but always covered in bruises. But yeah, I'm from Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. I work at iHeart Podcasts, which iHeart is like a big company, but I work on the podcasting side, and I get to do a lot of really cool things, which is great. I work on the show regularly called Noble Blood, which is like a history podcast. And then I also get to do cool like sound design type stuff. We just wrapped this show called Consumed, which was like an audio fiction horror type show. Uh, so yeah, that's me.
So are you in negotiations? Are you forming a union? It sounds to me like you're already established and you're trying to get a contract.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. So I started at iHeart last January. It's been just over a year now for me. But when I started at the company, my supervising producer, Josh, who is great, he's also on our bargaining committee. But one of the first conversations that we had, he like texted me, he was like, "Hey, do you have a minute to chat?" We got on the phone and he was like, "I don't know if anybody's told you yet, but we have a podcast union. We got recognition. At that point, it had been over a year already in which they got recognition. Um, and if you're interested, like, would love to have you get involved. We're still working on negotiating. So that was a full year ago now. And for the entire time that I've been at the company, we've been in negotiations with management. So we're coming up on, I believe, 2 years of going back and forth and having bargaining sessions. But the union got recognition even before that. So we've been a union for over 2 years now. So it's a long battle, and we on the bargaining committee, we're hoping that we're in the like final stretches of our bargaining process so that we can go ahead and ratify our first contract. But it's been tough, I won't lie.
Yeah, no, trust me. First contracts are always the hardest.
Yeah.
It's just pulling teeth. But iHeart Pod, then they have
Yeah.
iHeart Radio. So
Yeah.
you're like a
So
subsection.
yeah, for sure. So the greater company, and there's, all of the corporate branding stuff that they try to get us to follow.
Hmm.
It's the greater structure of the company is like iHeartMedia. It's this big multi-billion-dollar company.
Hmm.
Uh, and for the longest, it was iHeartRadio was the main focus. Obviously now, with the way that the radio industry has gone, they still have radio. We still own, like in Atlanta, for example, it's like most of the time, if I'm flipping through the radio, most of those stations are iHeart radio stations. And then my side of the company is iHeart Podcasts. So we're fairly separate entities under the like big iHeart Media umbrella. And iHeart likes to brand itself as like a multimedia company, with like a main focus in audio. That's where the company started, and that's where most of their focus is. But they also have a bunch of things that, like, I mean, at the worker level, they feel pretty flashy, I guess. So like the iHeart Awards, they just had the iHeart Music
Yeah.
Awards last Monday, which it's like a whole big thing where they just are catering to celebrities mostly. So it's like a fairly large entertainment company with like a main focus in audio. And then yeah, I'm on the podcasting side. So in our unit, and there's more people that work in podcasting, but our unit has about 105 members.
Oh, wow.
Not all of those, there's a bunch of people floating around on the podcasting side that we've tried to fight for them to get put into the union. The way that the company classified it is some of our executive producers are in the unit, but because they have less like overseeing people responsibilities. And then like my executive producer, for example, as a manager of people isn't in the unit. So I would say there's probably around 130 to 150 people in podcasting overall, but our unit is about 105 members.
Who who did you all affiliate with, or are you all an independent union?
Yeah, we're under the WGA East.
WGA.
Yeah, and it's been really great. Our organizer, we've had a few people come in and out through our campaign. But Teo Bugbee is our field representative from the WGA East. And they've been great. They're super helpful. But some of our we like to call them our sister shops. But our organizers also work with like the Ringer Union at Spotify and Gimlet as well. They're also under the Onion Union is also organized with WGA East and has their contracts are directly done with our field representatives as well. Yeah, it's been cool to see the like working with WGAE and the like sister shops that we have. The Ringer and Gimlet crews, I know just last month were down to the wire with their contracts. So on our side, we're like trying to support them, show solidarity. I run our Twitter, so retweeting all of their stuff, they retweet all of our stuff. But it's also interesting to see like how is their contract shaping up. Like theirs basically expired. They had to rally in I believe like a day or two, tried to rally strike authorization. So watching all of that go down, and then as we're in our final months of bargaining our contract was exciting and also stressful because it's like, okay, what's happening over there is similar to what's happening in our shop. So, we're trying to pay attention to all of the other similar type unions that are also under WGA East as well.
You mentioned the word solidarity. I think that's what it's about right now.
Yeah.
That word is so powerful.
Yeah.
And we make this podcast about kitchen table economics. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. How many people are having trouble paying their rent right now? How many people can't afford health care? How many people don't have health care?
Yeah.
Everything that we are here to lift up, people who support the labor movement. And that's what you're doing. You're trying to get your first contract. And Juan said it, getting your first contract's hard. Kicking ass for the working class is hard. And we're here to lift you up. We're here to pick you up. And, I just want to welcome you again, Noemi, to this podcast. We're going to follow you. We're going to platform you. All the people who are part of the unit, we got your back. The UnionOrBust podcast, we have your back. We want you to get the best contract that you've ever had for your first contract.
So you weren't around during the organizing part of it. You joined when they were already negotiating the contract. But do you know, like usually in organizing campaigns, workers organize around certain issues?
Yeah.
Are there any like top 3 that you all are really trying to that organize in the first place for those issues?
Yeah, definitely. And those initial organizing issues are those are like the final things that we're talking about in our contract right now. Like we're not at a place where we have a whole bunch of open items. Honestly, most things are fairly closed at this point. And the things that we're still going back and forth about are those big things that the union was organizing about in the first place. One of them, of course, as it always is salary. Our salaries across the unit, without giving too many details, just the general idea is that our salaries across our unit are so far spread out. Like even within a single title from producer, people are making tens of thousands of dollars difference. And it's just because you come into the company and they're offering people deals based on, you know, they have their base salary ideas, all companies do, but some people come in and they have more career experience. And so they know like, hey, no, like this salary is going to work for me. They have that knowledge to negotiate that. But like for me, for example, this is my first job, and I guess corporate America. Sometimes I forget that it's corporate America because I work in podcasts and I get to do something fun and creative all day. But at the end of the day, I am working for like a large
Corporation.
corporation. And the places where I feel that the most are in this like back and forth bargaining and being a part of the union and being like vocal and loud about it. But so salary is a big one. We're working right now to get minimums to where we know they should be, because it's expensive to be alive, as we were just talking about. Like there are so many people in our unit who can't afford to pay their rent, who are can't afford to like get their groceries every month. And me, I'm not married, I don't have kids. And so the salary that I'm working on is like still, I live in Atlanta, rent's expensive. So it's like, yeah, I would love to make more money for that reason, but I have plenty of coworkers who have whole families, who are just now having children, who have all of these expenses that pile up. And at the end of the day, the podcasting side of the company is what's making all of the money. And none of us are seeing any of that money. So that is obviously, as I'm sure it is in most shops, in most places, because we all deserve to make more money, like a big reason that people organized. And I think like a subsection of that, and something that has fallen off a little bit in our contract talks, but is still important, is an overtime issue. And there's like an unspoken culture about overtime where overtly people were being told like, oh, you're not allowed to clock overtime right now, don't clock overtime. Or and then like the unspoken culture is sort of just like, you're going to be working more than 40 hours a week some weeks, and other weeks you're not going to be working 40 hours a week, and those will just even out. Which, sure, it might be the case that you're working under 40 hours in a week. However, if I spend 50 hours working on this product during the week, then I need to be able to bill those 10 hours, regardless of whether or not the next week is lighter. Because the other thing is that like with overtime pay, obviously, when you are not clocking those hours and you're doing these workaround ways to like make it make sense, you're also losing out on that time and a half. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were like, when in organizing talks, we're like, yeah, and you know what? It wasn't, the salaries weren't so big of an issue until the company started having an issue with us clocking overtime, because a lot of people were like, I'm working so many hours a week that my base salary being low isn't bothering me, because I'm making it up being able to clock all of these overtime hours that I'm working. And so there's been a whole lot of confusion, a whole lot of like hush hush kind of like energy about people feeling like if they clock overtime regularly, they're going to get in trouble or something like that, which is just not okay. Obviously, like people need to be able to do that, because it's the law. Nothing, not that anything is illegal is happening, let me be clear. It's not that, it's just that the culture is sort of that people are afraid to be putting that in, and then they're losing out on that money that they could be getting. And then the other big thing is healthcare. As we all know, healthcare in this country sucks.
Yeah.
And for our unit and for all of iHeart has the same healthcare plan. We haven't been able to figure out if like upper management and executives are also being offered this healthcare plan, but like it's not good. It's bad. Multiple of our unit members are like, I've worked at comparable companies, I've paid less for better healthcare. So people are paying so much and not being able to even access what they need to access with our health plan. And it's frustrating. In our last bargaining session, and I won't share names here, but he said that he's okay with this story being shared. In our last bargaining session, we had a member come in and write a testimonial for us. We've been doing a campaign where we try to have people write about the different contract issues so that we can present that across the table. It's hard to gauge how management feels about those things. But there was one bargaining session where we, I think, spent an hour just delivering like statements from our unit members on different contract issues. On the healthcare issue, most recently in our last bargaining session, we had a member who is just now back from paternity leave, and was telling us this like incredibly moving story, moving in the way where I'm like, I'm so upset for you that you had to deal with this, where there were some complications. Their child was in the NICU. They were in the hospital for a really long time. There was no clarity on, oh, while you are on paternity leave, you need to be paying out of pocket your premium. So their insurance almost lapsed, barely just found out in time that they needed to pay this premium so that they could continue to pay for the health care that they were receiving. But the gist of their story was that, like, at this time where people are accessing healthcare the most, when they're having their children, they're having the hardest time actually being able to access that. And so a big thing that we've organized around, and a big thing that we're still fighting for and still trying to find solutions for, is what we're going to do about our healthcare plan. It's just not serving our members the way that it needs to. And it sucks generally that the tone and conversation around healthcare in this country is always so fraught, where it's like, we all need to be able to access these things. Obviously, something at a systemic level needs to change. So one thing in this country, but so for our contract, it's been a really big thing, and we're still fighting for that. It's probably going to be one of the last things that we have on the table that gets solved.
So you're talking about all these issues, the healthcare
Yeah.
and wages. But didn't you just tell me that they're throwing all these lavish parties for all these celebrities
Yeah. Yeah.
and but when it comes to taking care of their own people, it's been taking 2 years. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly the case. And it's crazy for us. We sit here and we watch them throw these big, expensive parties. And I was tweeting about it last week while it was happening, where I was like, okay, and I wonder how big of a check they're cutting for Justin Timberlake and Green Day and all of these people who they have performing and announcing, but they're unwilling to add more money to our contract, is the energy that we get across the table. And we know that we are doing like a lion's share of coming up with the profits at this point. And I could probably find the actual numbers because we've been talking about it a lot. But they're spending money on things that are crazy. And we are asking for very basic things like being able to pay our rent and having good health insurance. And it's wild to watch, like, I believe it was last week or the week before, where we learned that they had the company, iHeart Media, had recently donated nearly $200,000 to Ted Cruz's super PAC.
Oh, shoot.
Wow.
In last quarter alone, they did nearly $1 million worth of lobbying in Congress. So money is getting spent. It feels insane because they're sitting across the table and they're telling us that they don't have any money for our contract. And then the actual actions of the company and where they're spending their money don't align with that. What it is, and it's very clearly saying to us that they don't really care what we want. And it's not even what we want, it's what we need.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm blown away. You're saying, iHeartRadio is giving money to 200,000 to Ted Cruz, or getting people elected, and it's almost like they're just throwing it in your faces.
no,
It's what
yeah, that's
it just,
exactly what it feels like. Yeah.
man.
So you're tweeting about this. What's the vibe like out there with your coworkers? I know when it takes a long time to negotiate a contract, the biggest thing that something that happens is the vibe, the motivation
Yeah.
starts dwindling, And
Yeah,
that's one of the tactics for a corporation, is to stall, delay,
Mhm.
to break down the
exactly.
unit, to eventually not have to deal with the union at all. And then
Yeah.
whatever you all have, you don't have that workforce or that strength to fight for the contract. So I know you said you're tweeting, like where are you all at with actions or
Yeah.
your activism with fighting for this contract?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you're exactly right. And we have a really excellent and dedicated bargaining committee. We have about somewhere between 30 and 40 members, and some are
Wow.
more active than the other, but we have about 30 to 40 members who are like actively in the bargaining committee chat, or as at least as actively as they can be in the bargaining committee chat. And so it's a really excellent and dedicated group of people. We as a company too are one thing that we've found is that it's been really hard to get in contact with all of our unit members. So we have a good portion who will like fill out do actions with us. So like right now we are asking people to sign to like fill out this survey priorities or survey about contract priorities because we're 30 to 40 people trying to speak for over 100, and so we need to know what people want and what they're willing to do for those things. So that's one action that we're trying to do right now. And we're honestly having a hard time reaching the entire unit. We're doing, I feel like everything we can be to do that. We've been doing cold calling hours with our bargaining committee where we'll just sit there and we'll run through the list and call people and try to get them on the phone. And we're just like, okay, we're filling this out together. And obviously we like are also reaching out to like get to know those members, get to know what struggles they're having. Because a lot of times people don't, without talking to people without the union, don't know like, oh, wait, yeah, this thing that the company is doing or this thing that I've been experiencing is something that everybody's experiencing. And we're actually all mad about it. And okay, wait, now I'm feeling confident enough to like bring this up and talk about it and fight for what I want to change. But yeah, the other thing that's been difficult for us in like being able to reach all of our unit is that we're like fairly spread out as a company. So most of our members, um, or most of the people in podcasting are based in Atlanta. It's the biggest hub, it's the podcasting headquarters. But we're also in New York and we're in LA, and we also have people across the middle of the country as well. So we don't have like a specific gathering place where all of us are and where all of us can be together, which might make it a little bit easier. But because we're like so spread out across the country and across time zones, it's been a little bit difficult to like get everybody on the same page. Um, but we're working on it. We're in the
Yeah.
final push. And so we're really trying to like every day be calling people, texting people, or emailing people. We have started, we have these like all hands meetings for the podcasting side where everybody is supposed to be on it. And they do have a lot of people on the calls. And so one thing that we've started doing as the bargaining committee is just like spamming the chat with information about the union. And it's also information that like people might not know if they haven't been coming to things. And so it's like shocking for them to see this just like in the chat. Like one thing that people really respond to is um, with our salaries, they're presenting us a 15% differential if you live outside of New York and LA. And like I just said, the majority of people in podcasting are based in Atlanta.
Wow.
And so that like that's a message that we send in the chat, just like, hey, in case you didn't know, we're fighting against this, but management on the has on the table a 15% differential for these cities. So it's like they're presenting us this base salary currently, but it's actually 15% less if you're not in New York and LA. And so getting that information out there in the chat, and also just like, hey, we have these meetings, or hey, this is what's going on with the union right now. We're hoping like people who aren't typically responding to us are seeing that and feeling some type of way about it and want to get involved. Um, We've also started flyering our offices. That's something that has made a lot of people upset. And by a lot
I
of
bet.
people, I mean management.
Yeah.
But that's something that we've started doing. We've had a really big push for it. We are doing a lot of back and forth and like facing some like hostile corporate energy as we do that, especially in the Atlanta office, which is like a new office that they've built. And so they have a lot of client partners coming in and out of the office every week. And so they really don't like it when we have union posters up there. They do typically get taken down within the day, if not immediately. But that's something that we've been doing as well. And in doing that, we've gotten a lot of support from radio people, not workers like us, of course. And so that's been great too, where it's like, okay, yeah, we are this giant company that is like spread into all these parts, but we can have solidarity between each other as well. So that's been great. The response from the like workers like us on the other side of the office to our actions. For a while we still have out and we still ask people to sign like an open letter petition to management. We had a really big push for that. And every time somebody signs it, it sends an email to like a group of people in upper management, including the CEO and CFO. Yeah. So, I mean, you're right, though. It's like the longer that this goes on, that's why we're like really right now in these next couple of months, we're trying to make this like big push because we're hoping to close by the end of summer, if not before. Uh, but yeah, it's chugging along. It's sort of like sometimes like pulling teeth to get people to like respond to a text. And it's like, I promise I'll be less annoying if you just fill out this survey.
Well, I think like, labor, I mean, you are on one of the hottest podcasts, so we're gonna get the word out also for you.
Yeah.
But what you're doing right now is you're putting a spotlight on kitchen table economics.
Yeah.
You know, MSNBC, Fox News, all these giant media companies, um, they're not so much talking about people not being able to pay their rent, people not being able to pay health care, but the basic fundamentals of human existence. That's what you're asking. I just want to live. I just want to pay my rent and not be homeless.
Yeah.
Be
Crazy
a good
concept.
be a good corporate citizen.
Hmm.
iHeart. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what you're asking for, and you have to put a spotlight. And we, um, organizing Monster and we
Yeah.
always try to put a spotlight, and we see stuff is wrong and unjust, and because people fight for that spotlight, they want to use divisive social issues, something to divide
Yeah.
us, and at the end of the day, we keep that focus on hey, we're just a couple guys that want everyone to have health care.
Man, okay.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
so you mentioned like your units all over the country then,
Yeah. Hmm. We're
and
spread out.
you're spread out. So our biggest organizing tool in labor and organizing is talking one-on-one, is having one-on-ones, and that's kind of like something that you all don't have.
Yeah. It's been like, and we try to match people with like, oh, you're based in this city. Like, obviously, if you're based in LA, we like try to get you matched with somebody on the bargaining committee who's also in LA. So you can sit
Mhm.
down, you can have a coffee together. We have a bunch of people in New York who have been working to do that and like meet people in person. In Atlanta too, I see people in the office often and I'm like, oh, I know you haven't been responding to us yet, like online communication, like I'm gonna catch you in the office. But we also have people who are like in Boston. We have people who are, I don't know if they're actually in Arizona, but like for
Yeah.
we have people like in isolated cities where it's like it's kind of sucks that you can't have that like sit down face to face one-on-one interaction with them.
Mhm.
So we do always try to get people on the phone so we can at least talk. It's different than texting and emailing. But yeah, being spread out has been a little difficult for our campaign.
It's definitely like a high order, a tall order,
Yeah.
because because yeah, like you get the most bang for your buck when you have a sit down, a one-on-one. But don't get discouraged though, like because in organizing, union organizing, any kind of organizing, really, you're gonna have people that are
Yeah.
some are gun ho. They're out there holding picket signs. They're gonna do it all, and then you have some people that are not gonna respond to a text or an
Yeah.
email, and then across the spectrum. So it's just natural. Don't get
Yeah.
discouraged with that. I think though, the more that you're out there, the more that you're using social media, the more that they see other unions winning as well, right? Like the Teamsters
Yeah.
last year, WGA, SAG. Right now, our international is negotiating contracts for Hollywood
Yeah.
studios. UAW winning those
Yeah.
big old wins last year. So the more that they see that too, I
Yeah.
think it just helps the conversation. So me, I'm working on like 5 different campaigns, like 3 internal, like 6, 3 internal and 3 external. And I like to
Mhm.
bring in information from outside. I don't
Yeah.
just stick to what we're doing. I talk to them about the flight attendants action that's going to happen next week. I talk
Yep.
about the wins that UAW was able to do and how that stand-up strike was so successful and how they did social media. I talk about how UPS did their campaign last year where they did the practice picketing and then they got pledge cards. They didn't even have to go on strike. They just threatened a good strike vote. And
Yeah.
so all of this helps your campaign too. So that's what I do. And then
Yeah.
we have this podcast. With this podcast, it is bringing in other people, and then my members watch it, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I learned a little bit about that other union
Yeah.
now, that other union."
Yeah.
So that's what it
Very
takes
cool.
right now is the solidarity between unions, between trades, between people, because we understand that your fight is our fight is your fight, and we all have to win because we all contribute to the same economy, and it's the same oligarchs all around. They sit on each other's boards. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, but he also owns the Washington Post. So it's the
Yeah.
same big corporations that we're all fighting.
Right. Exactly. It's like a common enemy.
Exactly. It is an
Uh,
enemy.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I am very, and we have a lot of people who are very passionate about the labor movement. We try to keep our eyes on like everything that's going on, and we're always sharing stuff with each other. We're like, look at this win, or look at what these people are doing. Like maybe that's something that we could try, or like, hey, this week's been tough, but like let's look at these other union wins. Like that is going to be inspiring. I'm going to Labor Notes.
Hey, we're going to
Hey, we're
labor
going to.
notes.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
There you
cool.
go.
Okay,
There you
we'll
go.
have to meet
I was
up.
just gonna
Yeah.
ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think I'm the only one from our committee that's going, but our 2 field representatives, Teo and Molly, will also be there, which is great. I'm really excited and like energized about it. I think it's gonna be great. And I'm excited to like bring back all that info to my committee. It'll be awesome. But yeah, it's like across all of things, I am like try, and we have a bunch of people, I'm like try to bring union shit and sorry.
Yeah,
Didn't
go
mean
for
to
it.
Go for it. We
union
encourage
stuff.
what you want.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you
Okay,
want.
great.
Yeah. We're not a nonprofit
Great.
yet.
You're not.
Yeah, we can say whatever we want here.
We're not part
Okay,
of the system
beautiful.
yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's but like across all aspects of my life, like this is silly and goofy, but my friend and I were meeting up for drinks the other day at his place, and he was like, okay, yeah, let's make spaghettis, which is like High Life and Aperol. And then 2 days ago, the Teamsters were like, no, we're boycotting Molson Coors. And I texted my friend, I said, I'm so sorry to break this to you, buddy, but we can't do that. I'll bring the Lone Stars instead.
Mhm.
But it's
solidarity.
it's like things like that where it's like, yeah, and it's solidarity across all things. If the Teamsters are telling me that they're getting treated unfairly, I'm going to boycott the products. And is that all of the cheap beers? So many of them, yes, but fuck the big corporations. Like we're about people first, and we all have very similar, I mean, different levels of it. Obviously, like I'm a podcast producer. I don't have the same day-to-day work struggles as somebody like in the auto factories has, or somebody like the Waffle House workers that just went on strike in Atlanta for a few days. Like we don't have the same day-to-day work life, but at the end of the day, we're all asking for the same thing. We want to be treated with respect. We want to be paid the way for the labor that we're doing. Um, and we want to be able to live our lives comfortably, which is increasingly difficult. And it shouldn't be. And these giant corporations have the money to do it. They just want to keep the money to themselves.
Well,
But at the end of the day, it's like we're the ones doing the work for them. I don't feel like CEO is an important job title, to be
yeah,
so real.
we just talked about on the last podcast, we were talking about AI. And
Yeah.
then your union sister, you should follow her. She's awesome. She's a flight attendant.
Okay.
She said maybe we should make bosses and CEOs AI. Like we don't need those jobs. Those AI would probably do a better job at running a company than a person. So
No, exactly. It's like, what are you, it's not an important job title. It's not the job that's doing the work. It's not the job that is actually important to the company running. Like if all of us at iHeart Podcast decided to stop working for even 1 week, it would all go to hell because there are so many daily shows. There are so many shows that run weekly. There are so many shows that are like celebrity deals that they need to keep running so that they can keep doing their thing. That it's like, yeah, and if we withheld our labor, you would immediately feel an impact. Obviously, which is why people go on strike.
right.
And so it's the other thing too with like energizing our members who we haven't been able to like get in contact with yet, where it's like, you're doing all of this work and the company is saying all of these things about being the biggest audio company in the world and how the podcasting division once again is like gaining revenue quarter after quarter. They're saying these things in all of their calls. They're saying these things to our faces. And then what they're saying to you actually with your paycheck is that they don't actually care. They're like, great, thank you for the money. Keep working for pennies. And you'll be happy to do it because it's too difficult to organize, is the thought that the company obviously has. Um, and so a lot of our conversations with members are like, it's okay. Like we're all on the same page here. We already have the union recognition. Like we can talk about the union. We can do it at work. We can make our demands. And if somebody wants to be mad about it, they can be mad about it. Like when I was putting up flyers in the office the other day, somebody from upper management came up to me and I had our union shirts out on a table because we had just received them. So I like took a stack out. I put it very neatly on my desk so I could take a picture. And he like walked up to me. He was like, who do these shirts belong to? I said, they're mine. They're the unions. He was like, okay, well, can you remove them? I was like, wait, right now? He's like, yeah, this is a workplace. And I said, well, unions happen in workplaces. That's exactly where they happen. And I'm also allowed to have all these things out here. You can take down the posters if you want to. You're going to take down the posters, but we're actually allowed to do that. And we're allowed to talk about the union and we're allowed to be loud about it, regardless of whether or not it makes you and your client partners uncomfortable. Honestly, I hope it makes you and your client partners uncomfortable.
That's
Right.
when you make a good TikTok. You
Yeah.
get that guy on there. Oh man, I'd
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
And you standing up to him like that, and then it shows your other coworkers like, oh, hell yeah, we do have power. We are a union. Things like that, instances like that matter so much in the field. Like with one of our units, my coworker, he's a field rep for this specific company. It's called Encore AV Technicians in Hotels. We set up the
Mhm.
audio, the video, the lighting in
Yeah.
hotels for conferences, dinners, weddings, conventions. And he sends out emails like, hey, safety, safety first. If you're not trained to work on this lift, XYZ, then you can say, I'm not going to jump on it. I'm not trained. You can literally just say that. Now you're union. You
Yeah.
can do that. Put your foot down. And then when we did a field visit the following week, after he sent out the email, one of the workers came up to us and said, like, hey, the email, I read it. And yeah, dude, I put my foot down. And then he just backed off. He didn't do anything. And that's
Incredible.
what it is, though, is knowing your
Yeah.
power. That
Yeah.
Chris talks a lot about that, is knowing your power. Like
yeah,
most of us don't know we have power because we've been brainwashed since childhood that you have to
Yeah.
fall in line, sit like this, take orders, and it's all about authority and it's all about the rules. But in
Yeah.
reality, we're the ones that have the power. They're just we're just waking up the beast. They used to call the people the beast back in the
Yeah.
day during Andrew Adams or whoever these big old founding fathers were. They used to call us the beast. When the workers stand up, we're the beast. That's what they used to call us. And so I think that's what's happening right now is the beast is waking up, and you
Yeah.
have to know
Yeah.
your power.
Now I got to tell
Now you have to tell
Noemi
a
my
story.
cheetah story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chris
please
has a cheetah story.
do.
So anyway, the story's an old one, but when I
Mhm.
was a young dad, I was like 28 years old. I took
Mhm.
my daughters to the zoo and we went to go see the cheetah cage. And it
Mhm.
was a big cage, you know, they have trees in there and everything. But Noemi, I'll never forget. There was a golden retriever, a dog inside that cage with a cheetah. And it was barking at that cheetah, going, rah! The cheetah was all scared. And I was thinking to myself, holy cow, that cheetah could rip that dog's face off. That's all I was thinking. So I
Yeah.
asked the zoo guy, I go, hey, what's going on? And he told me that the cheetah thinks the dog is dominant because the cheetah was born in captivity. So I always tell union members, remember who you are. You're part of the union. You're part of the
Yeah.
labor movement. We don't cut side deals. We work together to get the best contracts possible. We are a pride alliance, and the pride will eat, but how much is ultimately up to us. So
Yeah.
that fire right now, that's what's going around the country. You know that, and people are going to get owned
Yeah.
because we're 88% approval rating for Gen Z. I mean, holy cow,
Mhm.
71%. This is not just independents, Green Party.
Oh,
This is all of us coming together and say, you know what? We're going to be able to pay our rent. We're going to be able to have free healthcare. We're going to be able to do this, and we're going to do
yeah.
this by eating the rich.
No, exactly. It's really incredible to be a part of the labor movement. I feel really grateful to have come into the company and to have somebody so like eager and active on my team already to be like, no, you should get involved in this. It's also the only place at the company where I've felt where I'm like, no, and this is like actually a community. Because like before I actually like got involved or anything, is like I work from home. So I mostly just sit at home with my studio headphones on all day. And the only people I talk to are like in my team directly. And so I didn't really know anybody at the company. I didn't really know anything going on. And they love to have us come on meetings and be like, oh, where are places that you felt most comfortable like working here? And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's always going to be with the union for so many reasons. Like for intersectionality purposes, for solidarity purposes. I'm like, yeah, as somebody who is a person of color, as somebody who's trans, I'm like, I feel supported by all of these people because I know that we have this very common interest. And at the end of the day, it always feels like, and yeah, if you're dedicated to this movement, I know that in other areas of your life, like that morality and those ethics are showing. And that makes me feel comfortable being in community with you as a person. So it's been really great to be a part of this and have all these people, and also the support that like our committee shows each other when like something that sucks happens, because at the end of the day, things happen at work and they suck, and you want to have somebody to talk to about it. And the fact that we have 30 to 40 people who are all there and ready to be like, no, and I'm here to support you. Like, what do you need from us? Let me know, is great. And it's incredible. And so that's the other message that we're like trying to get to the rest of our unit, where it's like, yeah, and like things are going to happen at work and they're going to suck, but there's going to be 105 people at least who are like on your side, who've got your back and are going to be willing to do what it takes so that we all have like a good experience in this place, because we all like our jobs. Like working in podcasting is fun. I want to work in podcasting for a long time. I just want it to be sustainable for me, you know? Like I like this job. It's one of the only jobs I've ever had that I actually liked doing. And I don't want to lose that. And I think another thing that gets people scared or gets people nervous is that we work in the media. So it's like, yes, we're seeing all these union wins, which is great for the union, but working in the media, it's like every week we're seeing some company go on under, we're seeing some company do massive layoffs. And so like, as somebody who works in that, it's like, okay, well, I'm always feeling like, when is it going to be my turn? Which is a fair thing to feel. It sucks that we feel that, but that's the state of the industry. But the other thing that I want to tell people is like, and yeah, if one day it is your turn and they do some big round of layoffs, which sucks, and we don't want that to come, the union and getting a union contract is going to make it so that your severance is better. We had people before we even got our contract from our unit get laid off. And because of the union, they were able to negotiate better severance and better deals. And that was like a huge win that we were like, before we're even getting a contract, these are the things that we're able to do. We also had, this was while I was working at the company. I still am. This was after I got hired is what I mean. We had an announcement go out that the company would no longer be doing 401k matching. And because we have a union, even though we don't have a first contract, our unit, we were able to be like, no, that's actually, you can't do that. And so our unit is still getting their 401k matched. And so it's like those wins that we're like, we share these with each other and we're excited about them. We try to get everybody excited, but it's things like that where it's like, yeah, the media sucks and it's a volatile industry and it's up and down all the time. But at the end of the day, the union is going to do what it can to A, protect you, and then B, if a day comes where there are layoffs or something like that, that you're not fucking shit out of water, not being able to pay next month's rent because you don't have any severance.
Right.
So it's things like that.
Yeah, and also I tell my members and people that I'm working with to organize, I tell them like, okay, but what are you gonna do for yourself?
Mhm.
Like, sure, like you say, things suck, everything sucks, life sucks,
Yeah.
and but life is beautiful when we come together and we fight for something. Like this has been an ongoing thing since we started here in the U.S. and in
Mhm.
Europe with when a bunch of workers come together, they started forming unions. So this has been an ongoing thing for the past 300 years here in the U.S., 200 years in the U.S.
Yeah.
So yeah, things always suck, but we can make it a little bit better. But if you don't fight for anything, you better believe it's going to continue to suck. So,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I tell members, your contract and you're fighting for your first contract is property. You
Yeah.
own it. So if
Yeah.
it says you get overtime after this or you get holiday premium, you own it and it cannot be taken away from you without
Yeah.
just cause. And just like you own a house, you're going to have to take care of it. And you
Yeah.
have a contract, you have to take care of it. You can't just, you know, have something that's yours and not, put effort into it. Otherwise, it's going to, well, we know what those houses look like.
Yeah.
And, members will get, members, they own that. And let me tell you, Amazon,
Mm.
Walmart, whatever, they don't want you to own property. They want to dictate your wages, your benefits, and your working conditions
and your homes.
Yeah.
and your homes. And it's like, you go into the office and ask for a raise, one person at Walmart, and he goes, I'm not going to give you a raise, or she says, I'm not going to give you a raise. And, if 35,000 people walk in the office and say, give us a raise, we're going to walk outside. Now that's a different conversation. And that's the
Yeah.
power of the labor movement. And I think energy is what's driving this right now, that
Yeah.
solidarity. And I say it's not about just one union. It's about the Teamsters. It's about Unite Here. It's about the flight attendants. It's about
Yeah.
UFCW. It's about all unions coming together in the banner of
Yeah.
solidarity.
A win for workers in any union or any industry is a win for all of us, because that is just like another chip off the boss's little ladder that they're up. We're just making our way up there. But yeah, you talked about asking for a raise right now. That's another big thing where it's like people have worked, my coworker, for example, this is their third or fourth year at the company. They have not received a raise in that entire time.
Shoot.
And there are people who have been working at the company for longer who have never received a raise. And so it's not sustainable to come in making one salary and just be making that salary for years. After I think it took 18 months of bargaining for them to put yearly increases on the table. And what they came back with was 1%.
I think,
Inflation last year was 3.4%.
I think the owners of iHeart Radio need to look outside and see how many homeless people are. Don't take into account, I'm sure they don't take into account 70 or 70% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. People are struggling paying their rent.
See,
The,
Yep.
I think they do.
oh,
I
they
think
do.
they don't care.
Oh, there you go.
They don't care. Yeah, these people don't care. Okay, they don't. They know the numbers. They're smart. They have
Oh,
lawyers and they know the
and I would have
numbers.
to agree. I would have to agree because and I would love to tell you another insane thing about this company. Our CEO, Bob Pittman, owns a private jet company.
Nice.
Wow.
iHeart rents him a private jet through that private jet company.
Nice. Oh,
Whoa.
So when I think you're right, it's that they do know and they don't care because they want to continue to do shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
Like he wants to
Holy
continue
cow.
to fly to Burning Man. He wants to continue
Yeah.
to hang out with Elon Musk, whatever. It is fully just that they don't care about us.
There's a TikTok video that my coworker sent me this week. It's pretty freaking funny. It's one of those like, you, the same person does two characters kind of
Yeah, I
deal.
like those.
Yeah, and then he's all like, "Hey, it's a yearly review." He talks very monotone, like a white dude, very monotone. Can I get my raise? He's all like, "Oh, the numbers are excellent. Like these are our profits this year. Thanks to your guys' hard work, our CEOs are able to buy a second home and build pools in their second homes." They're like, and then the workers are like, I love that. I love that. He's like, I'm happy for you guys, but can I please have a raise? He's like, oh no,
Yeah.
you cannot have a raise. What are you talking about? We need second homes. It's such a, but that video, yeah, it's so exaggerated, but that's exactly what it is, I feel.
Right. It's the thing where it's like it's not even exaggerated. That's like exactly what's happening. That's exactly and they're not
Exactly.
saying it with their words, but they are saying it when like we're back and forth, and they're saying, sure, and you want yearly increases, you can have them. How about you get 5 pennies extra paycheck?
Oh
Will
my
that
God.
do it? Will that make you shut up?
Yeah.
Like that is exactly what they're saying by being like, yeah, you can have a 1% yearly increase. What is that going to do for anybody?
Yeah. It's just a slap in the face. If anything, they shouldn't have
Yeah,
offered anything.
it feels disrespectful.
Yeah, that's what that is. So we're almost at an hour now. We usually shoot for about an hour. We don't like to burn anybody out, and our cameras are on batteries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Again, thank you for joining us. I
Yeah.
know like that's what this podcast is about bringing everybody together and making this information digestible to the average Joe and Jane in the street.
Yeah.
Because for what I've observed in my time with labor is that labor has always been very exclusive. We have our meetings that nobody else can join. Nobody else knows what happens in the meetings. If you want to become a member, some unions, it's a lot harder to become a member. Very
Yeah.
exclusive. And I think there's something cool to that. Maybe you can make the argument, you're in the club kind of deal. But at the same
Yeah.
time, what a not everybody's in a union. Only 10% of workers are in a union. Everybody deserves to have livable wages and health care and be able to afford to send their kids to college or buy a house. So
Yeah.
that's what this podcast is about. It's about us trying to make this information digestible to everybody, to the community. Hey, this is what's going on here in the union houses, but then they can relate. They're like, hey, that's what's going on with me over here at this non-union place or something. And then we got to support each other. That's what this is all about. That's what the term back there is about,
Yeah.
solidarity. And so, yeah, any last words you want to plug something in, or any actions that you want us to be pushing, that how we can support you all?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would always say tweeting at us is helpful. The more eyes that we get on our contract, the better. They hate it when we have eyes on the union, so we love that. We do have a oh my God, what is it called? We have a letter out that supporters can sign, union or non-union, that is asking the company to do better, and I can send y'all the link to that as well. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I think final words are just, it's tough, but it feels really good to keep pushing. And I am so proud of my committee and everybody in the unit who's been working towards this first contract. And being a part of the labor movement feels really incredible. And it's really incredible to see all of the wins happening. It feels like the tide is turning. I know that we just said 10% of people are in a labor union, but it feels like it's getting bigger and bigger every day, which is incredible. And I just it also feels like more and more people will know that, like, hey, wait, like I can do that at my workplace too. Every time somebody comes up to me and they're like, oh, I have a complaint about work, I'm like, and have y'all thought about unionizing?
There you go.
But yeah, no, it's really great to be a part of, and I'm really proud of us for like putting in the hard work and like continuing to push this, even though it's been 2 years at this point. And a 2-year fight is a really long fight to be having, and it's still going. But we're still energized and we're still excited, and we will get a fair deal. I know we will. So yeah, thank y'all for having me on here today. This has been great.
No problem. It's a pleasure. It was a great podcast.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I had a lot
We
of fun.
we learned so much about iHeartRadio. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about them. So I have iHeartRadio on my phone.
Yeah.
So
They they got a lot going on, and I just wish that some of that was giving me more money.
exactly. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, that's another
Cool.
episode of Union or Bust. And please support the iHeartRadio Union,
Yeah,
iHeartRadio
iHeartRadio
Pod Union.